So in today's lesson, we're going to solve a problem. And the problem is this. You got some shapes in front of you. Okay, can you just take a look at them with your partners? And what kind of shapes do you see? You see triangles, and you see a square. You see squares. All right. In today's lesson, we are going to make one shape using exactly 3 of those squares and 2 of those triangles. Do you think it's possible?
Yeah.
All right, go on.
We could do another one.
This guy.
Sorry to interrupt you. So is it possible? Is it possible? And do you think the shape that you make is the same one as the one that the other groups made? No? Really? But even though they are different, is there something that you can say about them that they are alike? Are they alike in any way? Talk to your friends for a minute. Alright, sorry to interrupt you. So, in what ways are they alike, even though they are kind of different from each other?
They got the same area.
They got the same area. Is that right? Yeah. How do you know they got the same area?
Because you're using the same shapes.
Because you need the same shape?
Yeah, you're using the same shapes.
Oh, you're using the same shapes.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Just using the same shapes, the area would be the same?
Yeah.
Anyone else? How else do we know the area is the same?
Because we're all using 3 squares and 2 triangles.
The same number of shapes, the same shapes, in particular 3 squares and 2 triangles? Yes, go on.
They have the same amount of sides and angles.
Is that right? They got the same number of sides? We don't all agree on that. Is it true that the shapes that you make all have the same number of sides?
Yeah.
Talk to your friends for half a minute.
Any shape you make is
Alright, sorry to interrupt you. Is it true that the different shapes are alike because they have the same number of sides? For example, any group made a shape that are 4-sided? So how many sides does the shape have?
10.
10? Anyone else have a?
12.
12. Oh, so it's possible that the number of sides are different? Oh, okay. So that's a difference. So how are they different? They are different shapes, and sometimes they have different number of sides. How are they alike? Some of you say they have the same area, and you give some explanation. Anyone else can explain why the different shapes have the same area? What do you mean when the shapes have different area or the same area?
They have the same amount of shapes in it. So it has 3 squares and 2 triangles. So it's everyone has 3 squares and 2 triangles in it, so they all have the same area.
All right. Anyone else? So what if I want to make a shape that has a smaller area? What should I do? Can you talk to your friends for a minute?
No, you can take one of the shapes away.
All right. Sorry to interrupt you. By the way, the shape that you make, is it has a bigger area than this? For sure?
Yeah.
How many times?
5.
We don't agree. I hear 3, I hear 4, I hear 5.
3 times.
How many times, I wonder?
4. No, not 4. No, it's
4 times? Is it really 4 times as big as the shape that you make? I mean, the shape that you make is 4 times as big as this one?
Yes.
Not 3?
No.
Not 5?
No.
Why 4 times?
Because we're using the square tiles. That means say this,
Yeah.
and because we add 3 on, it's 4 times as much because it's just that, and then add these 2 triangles and these 2 squares, and then it makes 4 times as much as just a single one of these.
Okay. Anyone else would like to add to that? Yes, please.
Because we use the triangles to make a square, so there's 4 squares, so there's 4 times this.
Okay. Anyone else? The rest had the same ideas? Okay. All right. Do you think it's ever possible to use the pieces you have to make a 4-sided shape? Okay, 1 minute? Could it be another one?
It's a 4-sided one. If you got all together, and you couldn't see the lines,
Could it be another one? All right, sorry to interrupt you. Which shape do you think is the most common one in this class? You think it's a square? Really? How many groups managed to get a square using the 5 pieces? So many? Is it really possible to make a square? And the square that you make, how many times is it as big as this one? Is it quite clear it's 4 times?
Yeah.
All right. Anyone else make a shape different from a square? What else is possible? What do you have?
A rectangle.
A rectangle. You think a rectangle is possible?
Yes.
Can you quickly show it if you have not yet gotten a rectangle? Is it really possible? So is it possible? Is it possible? And what's the area of your rectangle compared to this one? 4 times?
Yeah.
And if I refer to this as having an area of 1 square unit, can you tell me the area of your rectangle?
4 square units.
Does it make sense? Other than a square or a rectangle, what other 4-sided shape is possible? Anyone else manage to make a different 4-sided shape? Why don't we try another minute? A 4-sided shape that is neither a square nor a rectangle. Is it possible? Go on. Another minute.
Make a house. Maybe we should feel it a bit like
Would that be classed as no?
Do you have
Well, we could just have one of these. Yeah, so that's kind of one, but it's a square, so.
But then that would be a square. Well, why didn't we put
Is it possible?
At least we've done one.
Maybe it's not, isn't it? Yes, go on.
We made a four-sided shape using a L shape.
That one. So one of the groups make a shape that they describe as an L shape. Did any of you thought about making an L shape? Somewhat like this one. I know that the size is not exactly the same. I'm just recording what they mean on here. Is that okay? Yeah. So they make a shape that looks like that. Do you think that's a four-sided shape?
No, it's five. It's five because the top is.
I'm not sure how many sides is this. How many? Five? One side.
3, 4, 5, 6.
Are you surprised the L shape has 6 sides? But nevertheless, what's the area of this L shape? 4 square units, isn't it? Still the same as before? Alright. So, any other group managed to make a 4-sided shape? Did you guys make one? You think it's 4-sided?
Yeah.
For sure? Do you know the name? Not sure. I'm not sure it's 4-sided or not, but let me try to draw. Apparently, you put the 2 squares like so. Is that right? And then another one, making a very small L shape, which is probably not 4-sided. And then you put in the triangles. Is that right? So the triangles are put in. And here it is, class. I'm not sure whether you would agree whether the shape they make is 4-sided or not. Did I show it correctly? What do you think? The triangles went in here and here. Half a minute, talk to each other. Is this really 4-sided? So is this really 4-sided? We can check the top one. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, so it's 4-sided. Anyone happen to know the name of this shape? That's a square, that's a rectangle, and this is a
shape.
It's a shape, yeah. It has a name, I forgot what it is. It starts with letter T. Anyone happen to know? Is it a triangle? A triangle would have how many sides? 3. This is a trapezium. Have you heard of it? A trapezium. Some of you have heard it, some of you have not. It doesn't matter. Yeah. So now you have so trapezium. Some people in other parts of the world might call it a trapezoid, but I think in England we call it trapezium. Not so important, but more importantly is the fact that it's 4-sided. But does it have the same area as the other shapes before? Yes. How do you know?
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't, right? Does it? Oh, because the 2 triangles make, yeah, okay. So does it?
Yeah.
So what's the area? 4 square units. Yeah, 4 square units. But is it possible to make a 4-sided shape using the 2 triangles? Just the 2 triangles? It's possible?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's not. No, it's like a diamond.
Yeah, I made it into a square. Diamond.
Just out of curiosity, do you think it's possible to make a 3-sided shape, meaning a triangle? Is it possible to use all the same 5 pieces to make a triangle? Try it.
Straight here. And it's going to be pointed at the top. It's going to be like that. Then it's going to be straight again, like this.
Alright, sorry to interrupt you. Is it possible? Yes?
You put the 3 squares on the bottom and the 2 triangles together, like that.
It looked like that?
Yeah.
Class, what do you think about this? What if they put 3 squares to make a rectangle, like so, right? And then the 2 triangles they kind of make it like a little roof here. How many sides is that? Can you talk to your friends?
That's like 6 or something. It's 6. Alfie. No, it's 6. It's 6. Because the triangles have to go. That's 3. That's the other 3 down there. Now it works. It'll be 6 or 7.
How many sides would that be?
Because the triangle's in the middle.
So let's see. One side.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Oh, okay. So it's a lot of sides. Do you think it's ever possible to make a triangle? But what if I say maybe you don't need to use all the pieces? Is it possible?
Yeah.
Right, some of you say, what is it? Just this. Alright, just this. Would this be okay, or this? Is that right?
Or this.
Triangles need to have 3 sides. So is this a triangle? It is? But what's the area of this thing?
It's 1.
Do we all agree? Is it 1 or is it 2 square units? Why is it 1 square unit?
Because 2 triangles go together. 2 triangles, 2 squares.
Class? Why is it 1 square unit?
Because there's 2 halves, and 2 of them make 1 square.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to explain?
So, basically, there's 1 triangle, then you put that there. It basically make a diamond there, but now it's
A square, right? Okay.
Yeah, and that's it.
Yeah, so this is 1 square unit. What about this one? What's the area of this one? Half square units. Okay. Do you think you can make a triangle that's larger than 1 square unit?
Yeah.
Is that a triangle, class? Question, is this a triangle?
No, it looks like a little van. It's got with no wheels.
It's not?
It looks like a van.
Oh, just add 1 more piece to it. Like so? Would that be a triangle?
How is that? Yes. Look, it's got 4 sides, but no, it's got
3 sides.
Alright. Why don't we try? No more limits. You can use whatever you have in front of you. Make a triangle. Yeah, make a triangle. Hopefully different from the ones that we have.
And if you turn it around like that, it can make another one.
So what's the area of that one?
2. I think this 2 square units.
2 square units? Is it 1 square unit? Don't know. Talk to your friends. Today we are going to start our journal by drawing on the square papers, and then at some point you may cut this out and paste them in your journal. Alright? So for our journal today, let's start working on this. Can you try to, let's take one of the small square as 1 square unit. So do you see on the square paper, the little squares? Let's take one of that as 1 square unit. Okay, can you please draw at least 2 different shapes that has the same area? How big it is up to you. Alright? 2 shapes, 2 different shapes having the same area. Alright? So work on this. can check each other's work, whether or not the two shapes you have drawn indeed have the same area. Yeah? If you're done already, check each other's work. Can you also write down the area of the two shapes? But do write the square units. Yeah? Area is a measurement. It's important to put in the units. So for example, in my case, I would say that the area is equal to how many? Is that right? Mine is 4. It'll be 4 square units. Yeah. All right. Sorry to interrupt you. Shall we put away whatever that you're doing? Yeah, for a little while. And let's take a look at the textbook. Can you grab hold of your textbook, please? And try your best to find the problem that we were solving. Where is it?
I guess the 143.
On which page is the problem that we were solving? Spend a few minutes looking at those pages. Did our friends in the book get the same solutions as we did? So talk to each other about that. So talk to each other whether or not the shapes they make are the same ones as the one we make.
There are 6 shapes.
Alright, sorry to interrupt you. On which page is the problem that we were solving today? Is that right? And was that the exact same problem that we were solving using 3 squares and 2 triangles to make a shape? And what's your opinion about the 4 solutions that our friends in the book got? And anything that you want to say about those solutions? Yes, please.
They're the same as us, but they've done an extra one.
Do you have an extra one? So which solution we didn't have, but our friends in the book managed to get? Is it number 1? Is it number 2? Number 3 or number 4? So which one is different from the one that we did? Yes? Number 4? Did we not get number 4? Can we all look at number 4? What's number 4? Oh, that's interesting. Did we not get that? Oh, okay. Yes?
They've put 3 squares down, and then they've put 1 triangle at the end of the 3 squares, and then 1.
That's right, they did that, isn't it? Yeah, and they got a shape that... Anyone happen to know the name? If not, it's okay. I don't quite know the name, but you need to help me find out. It starts with the letter P. It's quite a long name, hence I cannot remember it. Anyone want to venture a guess?
Pentagon?
Pentagon? Pentagon have 5 sides. Anyway, anyone find out? Maybe you let us know tomorrow. So, number 4 is different. We did not... But is it the same area? Does it have the same area as the rest that we made?
Yeah.
Which is 4 square units?
Yeah.
Are you saying number 1, number 2, and number 3 are the same ones that we got?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to say about the way our friends were explaining their thinking in the book? Anything you like about it? Can you talk to your friends? Something that you like about the way our friends in the book show their way of thinking. Right? 1 minute. Anything that you like about the way our friends were explaining their thinking in the textbook? Yeah?
The shapes are like colourful.
Oh, do you like the way they color in the shapes? They're colorful, right?
I noticed that they've shown us like how we can change like the trapezium into a square.
You like that? The way they drew the diagrams? How the trapezium eventually became a square? Is that right? Do you see how they did that in the book? Yeah. So they kind of show you how that shape, the trapezium, can eventually become a square by moving something to a new spot. Is that right? Okay. Anything else? Okay, if not, then let's take a look at the guided practice. Can you and your friends try to find out the area of those 7 shapes? So each square is 1 square unit, all right?
This one is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
It's 14. It's 14. 10. I'll show you.
Let's do this one first.
12, 13, 14. So then the rest
Oh, what is that? Buddy? That's not a half there. It's like got 3 quarters and then there's a quarter there. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. No, because look, there's like a quarter there and 3 quarters there. So it can't, because 3 quarters of 1 quarter is 4 quarters, which is a whole, which is 5 square units.
Sorry to interrupt you. Some of your friends have a couple of questions they would like to ask. But before we go to that, which of these do you think is kind of easy for everyone? Which shape do you think is quite easy? A is quite easy? Do we all agree? And what's the area of A? 3, is that right? Why is it 3? Yes, please.
Because there's 2 squares and then there's 2 halves.
Do we agree with that? Yeah. Is that right? Yeah. Do you see 3?
Yeah.
Any other shapes on that page has an area of 3 square units? Yeah? Is that right?
Yes.
C? C has an area of 3? How do you see that?
Because you have the square in the middle.
Yeah?
And then there's 4 triangles.
Yeah?
And 4 triangles make 2 squares.
Oh, okay. Do we agree with that? Yeah. Okay. I'm surprised that A and C has the same area. Does it look like they have the same area to you?
Yeah.
To some of us, yes. To some of us, no. And that is why it's important to measure them rather than just looking at it. To some of us, they do look like they are the same area, but not to all of us. But once you measure it, you know once and for all if they indeed have the same area. Any other shapes have area of 3 square units? No. The rest are easy? The one that I want some advice from you is G. You know? It's like this.
At the bottom corner, it's not a proper triangle, but if you take that piece and then you put it onto the square above it, then that makes a hole. It makes 1 square unit.
Is that right? So you're suggesting moving that small triangle here, which is not quite a half, to complete the square above it? Okay. Go on.
I know why, because the square above it is bigger than a normal half, and the square underneath is smaller than a half.
Okay. So this is bigger than a half, this is smaller than a half, but together they still make 1 square unit? Is that right? Oh. Anyone else would like to help us explain it?
That piece, the black line that goes up to the next piece, leads up to being like a right angle triangle because it goes to the halfway point.
Is that right? Okay, that's interesting. Anything else?
On F.
Yeah? How about F?
Some
What about that?
it's It's actually quite easy.
Yeah, it's quite easy.
Yes, because you've got 4 towards where not where the Y shape is. You've got 4 there, 4 on the other one, and 2 in the middle.
Oh. So
So
you
that-
see 2 bunches of 4s, right?
Yeah, so that's 10.
Okay.
And then on it's actually most of it is straightforward because there's 2 of every compartment where there's 2 triangles are together. So every compartment there's a square.
So although it looks like it's quite difficult, it's actually quite easy if you break it up that way. What do you get for F anyway? What's the area of F? 14 square units? 14, we all agree? 14. And for G? For sure? How did you get 13? You see 13? Is that right? So apparently, which of this is bigger? F or G? Does it look like for sure F is bigger? Does it? To all of you? So just by looking, you can tell, oh, F is for sure having a bigger area than G. For some of us, but not for all of us. And that's why we need to measure it, right? So we cannot just rely on our perception, meaning what it looks like, isn't it? How about the rest? Was it quite easy for the rest? Yes?
D is 10 and E is 9.
D is 10? Is that right? And E is? 9? And B? 5. And of course, you've got to say 5 square units, isn't it? Right? Anyone else would like to say something about those shapes? Like perhaps you got an idea of finding out the area that make it easier than otherwise? Did any of you come up with ideas like that when you're talking to your friends?
You can find all the squares and then count how many triangles there is and then half it.
Okay, so you can count the number of
Yeah, and squares.
squares.
Yeah.
And then you halve it?
No, you half, and then you find the triangles.
Oh, you find the triangles. So do the squares first, then deal with the triangles later on. Okay? How confident are you if we will go to the workbook later on that you're able to do whatever is in the workbook? Yeah, quite confident? But before that, shall we write our journal first? So let's take out our journal. Do the usual things you do. Right, your journal number and all that. Yeah, please do that first. Our journal today is for you to draw a shape in your journal. If you need help, you can use this. But I hope you can just draw it straight into your journal. Draw a shape that has an area of 5.5 square units.
Oh, no.
All right? What's a good title?
The area of shapes.
Area of shapes. But it's up to you, really. A good title tells people who are not here with us what we were doing in class. Yeah? What do you have? Alright, I have that. So how should my triangle look like? So how should a triangle sit on top of this? So if I say this is 5.5, would you agree?
No.
You wouldn't?
No, because I've got a triangle.
Yeah. So you may want to adjust your diagram there.
Yeah.
If you think you're quite happy with your journal, can you find the page in your workbook that we need to work on today? So once you feel that your journal is good enough, put it away and take out your workbook page. Look for it or help your friends look for it and then start working on it, alright? We have about 5 to 10 minutes before the lesson ends. Okay? Yeah, is that right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and a half. Can you just help me record the area of this thing? Just put an arrow and write down the area so I remember what it is. Right, and how about this one? Alright, this is where I'm going to finish. Tomorrow I'm going to see you again for the next lesson. But before we finish, don't need to stop what you're doing. But what did we learn today? What did we learn today?
How to make figures with triangles.
How to make figures with triangles. So in our case today, the 2 triangles make 1 square unit. Anything else that we learned today? Let's go on.
I learned the shape of the triangles. The triangles.
Trapezium, the name of the shapes. And there's another one that, I wonder what that's called, isn't it? Something else that you learned today? Yes, go on. Anyone else?
We learned how half and half make a whole.
That's right, the half and half make a whole, isn't it? 2 triangles. So we always want to look out for those because that will help us a lot in finding area, isn't it?
We learned that if some shapes can have the same area but like different parameters.
Oh, is that right? So different shapes can have the same area. And some of them may even have a different perimeter. You check that out, isn't it? Because you were done a bit earlier.
We learned that how the trapezium can turn into a square.
You can imagine how the trapezium can turn into a square, and that will really help us in finding area as well. Right? Anyone else? Okay, if not, I'll see you tomorrow. I'll return you to your teacher. All right? Thank you, class.